Success of an entrepreneur.
We've raised the bar.
Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, you Roach Growth listeners. Today I have Becca Powers. She is a motivational speaker and CEO of Power Peak Potential. Thank you, Becca, for being here today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Vinny. I love talking to like fellow salespeople too. It makes me very happy.
I love hearing from salespeople. Like everyone here, right? You get the calls, right? You get the sales calls, and I always listen to their first pitch to see if they can hook me, and then try to see if I can pick things away from them. But anyways.
Yeah, I know it's a fun game we play.
All right, so I know you classify yourself as a strategist and not a coach. And anyone I get into the ballpark of coaching, I always ask them what separates you from other coaches. And I know you're not a coach, but in the ballpark at least. Yeah,
no, and it's fair. I mean, I'm a certified life coach, and I'm also a certified Kundalini teacher, and I have like this mixed bag of tricks, so to speak. But I think when I think of a coach, I really think of one-on-one, and I'm more of a one-to-many. Like I prefer large groups. I prefer influencing whatever I can to get in front, even like podcasting, is to get in front of many people at one time as possible. And really what sets me apart is that my focus is on helping the individual create work-life success without sacrificing themselves and their well-being in the process. I mean, in my own career, I probably have burnt myself out and had to pick myself up, and from being the one that I sacrificed myself for and my family for the success several times. So I get really passionate about helping people to have the success without the sacrifice. And I don't know if this happened for you, Vinny, but when I stopped sacrificing myself and was able to like prioritize my well-being, I actually became more successful. So that's my flip the script. And I get really excited to talk about it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I've for myself, I've put boundaries in place of when I work and when I enjoy myself. Yet I'm still working through those times where I'm enjoying myself. That little thing in the back of my head going, are you being lazy? Are you being lazy? Mm-hmm. Right. So I still work on that. I've talked to a lot of people on here, and I think that's something that one day I'll get through.
Yeah. And, just to say that, I mean, that's why I like to call myself a strategist too, because I think that we're always evolving. And yes, coach is a very popular term. But especially in the world of success, and when you're trying to create a multiple six-figure brand or even seven-figure brand, I think we're always strategizing and always evolving. And so we have to, and as you talk about, setting boundaries and enjoying your personal time and your professional time, I think about that too. I have to stop and look at my life every 90 days because I have many different things going on, and my priorities can often shift. But if I don't stop to re-strategize, I can, get my formula upside down and end up with anxiety or have too many things on my plate or whatever that looks like.
Something you brought up was the idea of that you like to talk and help multitude of people instead of just basically the one-on-ones. What do you see as the main difference when you talk to many people compared to a one-on-one person and helping them grow as people?
Because I specialize in empowerment, it's that piece. It's like the group, like there's the group collective, or like the spirit of many. When one person has an aha and shares it, then the next person, it's like the domino effect, maybe is a better analogy. But something about it just like lights my soul up. And I'm like, yeah, that person got it. And then that person got it. And after whether it's just a smaller group of 5 people or a larger audience of a couple hundred, it's just so incredible to see people feed off each other. And I grew up playing team sports too. So for me, like that team feeling feels really good.
Do you feel it's, and we're going to get into your journey. I mean,
it'll come.
Do you feel that it's easier, or is it just different of getting, because you're helping one person, using that energy from that one person to help the next person compared to a one-on-one where you have to bring it almost all yourself? Do you feel it's different, or how do you look at it?
Yes, and I think it's really based upon the person. I'm extremely extroverted. I'm in sales. I grew up playing sports. So for me, being in a group fills my energy. One-on-one can sometimes be a little more draining for me because I like be fast and like loud and all those things. Whereas some people really feel more fulfilled one-on-one. So I think it's a personal choice. But for me, it's definitely the group atmosphere is where I get excited.
Well, let's rewind, Becca. Let's talk about a young Becca. Was young Becca always helping people? Who was a young Becca?
Yeah, so young Becca, yes. I've always loved helping people, and I've always enjoyed bringing my best too. Like, I don't even know how to explain it, but I grew up playing competitive soccer. So I played competitively up until the age of 18. And that team spirit of being able to like collaborate and go for a common goal and help somebody else rise up, like that's always been a really big element to who I am. Also, it's in my bio, but my parents were hippies and like full-time musicians where I was born. So I'm the oldest of the two of us. I have the younger brother. And there was a lot of times that I was kind of natural, but I was responsible for taking care of us or maybe taking care of a couple kids or whatever, while they went and played their gig or whatever that looked like. And so I think it's been really natural for me to just kind of rise up to take lead and in kind of that group format. So it's funny that you asked me that. I was like, hey, I think it's kind of in my DNA actually.
Well, when I think of hippie, the one of the, of course you think about, drugs, right? But you think about like the giving, free, like being helpful to other people. Yet you don't think about like kind of getting stuff in return. It's just like, I'm going to help other people and things are going to be right for me. As a coach, where do you have that mindset? Because I think that's a problem that I've talked to a lot of coaches or people in your sector, right? Where they don't know how to price basically their worth and they want to help other people. So how is that varied from that idea to who you are today?
So that's a really good question. And I think I probably have had an easier time assimilating because I've had a 20-year sales career. So sales and charging value has become part of my upbringing, so to speak. But when you get into your entrepreneurial roles and you have to charge for your services as a coach or whatever your service profile is, there is part of your service that you're very like, oh, I just want to help people, and you do it for free. And I think that part is really important for the passion and why you're doing it in the first place. But everything is energy. And I'm just going to say this. I very big advocate. Self-worth equals net worth, like period. And when you don't value yourself and you don't charge for yourself, you're going to gas out. You're either going to run out of money, you're going to run out of energy. Something's going to hit a low. And if you're on a low, your self-worth is going to be impacted, which is going to impact, obviously, your net worth. And so what I have learned is that the more I charge my value, the more I actually attract the right people who want to receive what I have to give. And then I have more energy to give it.
It is knowing your worth. Is that something that you've known since a young age, or is that something you kind of work towards? Or
that is one I learned.
Okay.
that is a learned lesson. No. So actually, it's where, I know we were going to talk a little bit about my journey, but I wrote a book, started writing it in May 2020, and I published it in October 2021. And it's called Harness Your Inner CEO. And are you okay if I share a little story and then come to how I found my self-worth and started really harnessing it? So because I've been such a giver and I've been in sales, I'm a Fortune 500 salesperson and an entrepreneur. I'm running in both lanes at the same time. So I have very heavy workloads and learn to manage all that. But where my story starts as far as my self-worth goes is in 2013, I was a regional sales manager for Dell. And as a leader, when I'm in that type of role, I get very, very into people before profits. That's like my leadership mantra. And so again, that helped there. Like, I'm like, people first, profit second. And, but what I didn't realize is that also means for me, I need to put myself before the whole chase for success, but that'll come a little bit more in the story. So that was my mantra. I got recruited by a company that had the same mantra, that is putting people first. So I was like, oh my gosh, there's destiny right there. I'm going for it. I got to go. So when I go to resign from Dell, my VP of sales at the time was supportive of the decision. And he says to me, he's like, you are the CEO of your life. And I was like, that was like a moment in time that I'll never forget. I was like, yeah, that's really empowering. Yes. But like most things, it was like empowering for that moment and then like went to the back burner. Fast forward, I go to this company and here's the first kicker. So we're right on topic, is I took a pay cut to go there. And I was raising 4 kids. I had 4 kids in middle school. I took a third of a pay cut. It was a $50,000 pay cut at the time. And I thought I was doing a service, right? Everything on paper felt like all the right reasons. But yet in that formula, I was prioritizing my value below my beliefs. So that's kind of where the recipe started to get messed up in the first place, was that I didn't value myself. And so fast forward 3 years into that role, after working 12-hour days, overextending myself, like this thing, I'm going to digress for 1 second. But when we are feeling undervalued, we overcompensate by overcommitting, overworking, overstressing. So there is a compensation that happens. So I was overcompensating for undervaluing myself. And here's where it all hit the road. So I come home from work one day and I have the kids at home. I've had a 12-hour day, purse is on the shoulder. And this is not my best moment, Vinny. I'm just going to tell you. So I come home from work and my kids are all happy to see me. They're like, Mom, let me tell you about our day. And I look at them. I'm like, can I put my effing purse down? Like that was like legit how I like said to them. And then I was like, I need 5 minutes. And something happened, like time slowed down for a minute. And I saw how my words impacted them. I saw how they shrugged forward. I saw how their eyes got sad. I saw how they like looked like they felt shameful that they even approached me. And I remember thinking, like, is this the mom that I want to be? Is this what I've been sacrificing for? Is this why I took a pay cut? Is this why I've been working so hard? Like, the answer is no, this is not it. And then later that night, I was like, got the kids to bed, washing my face. And I literally fell to the bathroom floor. Like I hit my knees in depression, depletion, drained. I had just nothing. I had nothing left. And in my most powerless moment is what I say. In my most powerless moment, I kind of cried out to the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. And I was like, hey, need some help. Might not have talked to you for a while, but I don't have this all together. I need some help. So in that moment of my most powerless moment, I remembered what my VP of sales told me, that you are the CEO of your life. So this thought comes back to my forefront. And I'm like, holy cow, if I'm the CEO of my life, then why am I crying on the bathroom floor? I have a lot more power in this than I think I have. And so I rose up off the bathroom floor, a different person than the one that went down. And I say that because what I realized is that if I prioritized a belief, a person, my business, before I prioritized my value as a human being, before I prioritized myself, I was never going to hit success the way that I wanted to. So I had to do things differently.
Well, let's talk about that moment. So you fall to your knees. You're basically, as you say, in one of your lower moments. How long did it take for that epiphany to come about?
I mean, the epiphany was pretty instant, to be honest. I mean, the whole moment was maybe 5 minutes.
And then what's your first action after that?
Great question. So the first thing that I had to tell myself was that if saying yes to something made me say no to myself, then I had to say no to that thing so that I could say yes to myself. And that's like a pretty big, like, flip the script. So for the audience listening, it's like, for you to be able to have your yes, you have to say no to other things. and kind of goes back into the point of boundaries. But what that looked like as a real life example is like the next day at work, instead of saying yes to taking on an additional project, I said no. How about giving it to somebody else? My plate's a little full. And the more I said no to the things that were taking so much of my time and energy, the more yes I said to myself. So the more time and space that I got for the things that were really important. And as I was able, I talked about prioritizing in the beginning, as I was able to focus on prioritizing the things that were important to me, it became very clear that I was in the wrong role at the wrong job, because I wasn't maximizing my value. I wasn't maximizing what I'm worth. And I was able to shift out of that. But I had to create that space so that I could see that. And it started with saying no to things.
How long for yourself did it take for you to figure out what were your priorities from that moment?
My full transformation took 2 years. So I'm not going to sit here and say that it was like totally transformed in 90 days. But I would say probably within about the first 30 days, I was able to really sit down with myself and say what is important. And that obviously, if I'm yelling at my kids and telling them that I need to put my effing first down, I got my priorities screwed up. So it was my family, myself, and then like my job third. And when I was able to get those things, I prioritized myself first, prioritized my family second, and then the job. Things just started working a lot better. And funny enough, within 24 hours, because I called a friend the next morning, I called my work bestie is what I call her. But I was like, man, I had this moment last night, but I know I've got my formula upside down and I got to find something that I'm more in alignment with. Well, within 24 hours, she called me with a job lead that ended up being the job that I left for about 90 days later.
What was appealing about that new job?
That's an awesome question, because as you go through your priorities, like you kind of asked me, like, what do my priorities look like? But also in my priorities was like more fun, more freedom, like especially in sales and entrepreneurship, you do have the opportunity many times to build the lifestyle that you want. What happened to me is I was just working too damn much and overcommitting myself. So I wasn't inviting that space in. And so I wanted some of those things. I wanted to make more money. So I actually demoted myself from leadership and went back into outside sales. And beautiful things happened. I ended up getting like a territory. Like I live here in South Florida. And so part of my territory was the Florida Keys. And next thing you know, I go from like working in an office like every single workday to every third week driving down to the Florida Keys and taking customers out to dinner and entertaining them and stuff like that. So my lifestyle changed pretty dramatically.
And then, as you're transition to that new role, when did the idea of starting your own company come about?
The idea of starting my own company. So I've been an entrepreneur since I was 18. Like back when I was 18, I wanted to start like a beer delivery service because I thought it was like, hey, that's really smart and that'll keep people from getting DUIs. But I didn't get that one off the ground. But anyways, so I've always kind of had a side hustle. I've been coaching off and on since 2008. But really, once I was able to get through my transformation and really feel like I have a strong foundation and something that could really help somebody else, that's when I reopened my Powers Peak Potential and started doing like formalized programs and things like that.
What do you mean? What do you think you're afraid of, or what was not working or connecting when you first started compared to when you went full time into it?
Well, because I think it was just fear, to be honest. When I was coaching back in around the 2010s, I was just doing it more as a hobby. I've always been careered, and I get a lot from mentoring people. So part of it was just my give back, and I did charge for it, but I just wanted to make sure that I was helping people. I really enjoyed one-on-one coaching a lot back then. But also I think there was a fear that I couldn't do both. I have one of my things is like the power of and. I think that the and is so incredible to build success from. And back then, I really thought I either had to be a full-time entrepreneur or a corporate person. And what I learned is that I can be both. And like in today's world too, especially, I know you have a very big entrepreneur audience. Like for those that are side hustling, looking to build, like, or working on building their full time, like do it and go all in. Like I work for Cisco now, and they actually love that I'm an influencer, right? And sometimes be like, hey, can you throw this post? It's a Cisco post, but hey, can you throw this up on your LinkedIn or something? So times are changing where that's a lot more acceptable. And I think to answer your question, it was when I really allowed myself to go for it is what changed.
How do you balance basically working for someone else and building your own company?
It's a good question. And it comes to priorities, right? I'm not big, like if I was to rewind and say the Becca that fell down to the bathroom floor was trying to build a business, was trying to work full time, was trying to be the best mom, was trying to be the best friend. I was trying to be the best in everything, right? I probably had like 10 priorities. Now I keep them that simple, man, 3 or 4. And right now, building both my businesses, myself and my family are my priorities. So I don't find myself hanging out with my friends as much. I'm also in my mid 40s, so we're not as exciting as we were in our 30s or anything like that. But you know, I'm trying just to keep things simple and keep my energy on the things that are really important to me.
Do you envision a time when you would go strictly into speaking, into writing more books, and not having a corporate job?
Yeah. So my goal is to retire from tech in the next 5 to 7 years. Right now, I still love my career, and that's the thing. It's like, you know, you got to do what you love, and if your heart is in to going full-time entrepreneur, then you know you got to learn how to prioritize your time. If you are working full-time, to be like, okay, I got to get my job done, and then you're probably going to put 20 hours a week into building your business, right, until it starts scaling enough that you can make the jump. But that might mean, so that you don't burn out and that you're full of energy and that you're full of passion, you might have to reduce some of your other engagements or things like, you know, like that's what I want to say to that. But as far as executing on retiring, I still love what I do. So I'm thinking probably 5 years, and then I'll cut on over.
How much of a planner are you? I mean, it seems like there's been like some big moments in your life that have kind of pushed you in the directions you've gone to. I mean, so is it more about I have an idea of who I want to be or where I want to be, and it will kind of happen, or is it pretty meticulous and kind of
I think it's both. I mean, at least for me, it's both.
Yeah.
I am a big dreamer. Like, I will put that out. Like, I'm a big dreamer. I am. I like my vision boards and my vision lists, and I'll plan on like 10 years from now, I want to live on the intercoastal and whatever. I love that stuff. And then I'm also one that goes with the flow. Like, for an example, it's been on my list to write a book for the last 10 years. Never really got around to it, but when I just knew when the moment was right. I don't know how to explain it. Like, everything kind of just aligned, and my story, like, now I really had a story, you know, like I worked myself. And what I failed to say too is that I worked myself not only into the bathroom floor, but 2 anxiety disorders, autoimmune disease. Like, it was a monumental lift that I had to do to get my life back on track. And also, what I want to say to that is that how I'm saying, like, you can have success without sacrifice. What I'm meaning is you don't have to sacrifice yourself and your well-being. When I did prioritize my well-being and the things that were most important to me, I've since 5 years ago probably quadrupled my income. And I'm working 2 businesses, and probably I get done with everything by 5:30 every day. So a lot of times we just have excuses in our way that kind of, oh, we can't do this because, but anything's really possible. But so there is this little bit of magic to the way I do things. And I also have the very strategic side that is like, I want to do that by this time.
What about a young business owner, a young professional that's just getting into the field? I mean, because it sounds like at least you come from the idea of abundance, right? Where I think over time, most professionals, if they have their mind right, they start changing the way from scarcity to abundance, right? When you first get into the field of the business, it's very hard to think of abundance when you don't have it. So you think from
Yes.
scarcity. So for someone like that, what would you suggest for them to think about, do, so they can have that balance?
I would say consistency builds confidence. So whatever it is, just keep doing it. Like even me being like, I'm a baby author, right? I'm 9 months. I have my book anniversary, so I'm calling it, in October. So I've never been an author before. And what I didn't know about writing a book was that I would have to post about it 3 times a week, that I would have to do live videos. And like, so there was this whole, like, I might have been a successful businesswoman, but I've never had to do that part. And it scared the living bejesus out of me, to be frank. I was like, oh my God, like I've never had been that visible before. Like that's scary. But consistency builds confidence. So now I'm at the point where I have people, I've been on paid podcasts at this point too. When I first started, doing my podcast tours, as I like to call them, like I remember just being grateful that somebody would interview me, so, but now I've got like 30 or 40 under my belt. And, so that's just a small example of, hey, I was consistent in the one thing, even if we're just using this little tiny thing as podcasts, that now I've even done paid podcasts, but I've just stayed consistent. My first 5 interviews probably sucked, but I just kept going.
In the fear that you've kind of worked through, and I guess most people have some sort of fear that they work through,
Sure.
is that kind of what's pushed you through, just like, okay, I'm going to do this because the bigger goal? Or what does that look like when you're kind of working through that fear? I mean, in your case, I guess the podcast.
Yeah, I think it's the bigger goal. And it's like, how important is it to you? Is what I've learned. And I'm like a big, like, Tony Robbins fan too, but where your focus goes, your energy goes. Right. So that's like one of his sayings, but I really like that, because for me, I have a huge goal. We started off this conversation saying like that I like to help people. I want to empower the hell out of people. I want to help transform people. And I really have a really big tie to that. Like it means something to me. So it's like, okay, times are different than they were 10 years ago. I could have hired a PR company, gotten in a couple magazines and sold my book, but that's not how it is these days. You got to be on social media. You got to be present. You got to be on podcasts. You got to do all these things. And so it's like, I have this goal. Do I want to help people transform and empower themselves? Yes, I do. Am I willing to do the things that are scary to get to that goal? If the answer is no, then the goal is not important enough. And if you're a baby entrepreneur and you're not willing to do the things that are scary to get to your end goal, I would almost beg to say that you haven't found the right goal yet.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, I thank you so much, Becca, for being on the podcast. I mean, if someone's listening and they're looking to find out more information about speaking engagements, having you on their podcast, or just finding your book, anything about that, what's the best way of getting more information?
Best ways. Website is beccapowers.com. And my social media handles are the same across the board. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook at Becca Powers 1313.
I'm going to finish off with one last question. If someone's listening and they feel like they have a message to give, or they feel like they want to share basically their story with other people, I mean, what's the best way of someone kind of building a side gig of, be it coaching sector, be it basically mentor sector, be it strategic partner, I mean, however it might be, what do you think doing it all over again would be the best starting point?
Start sharing immediately. Okay. Just start sharing. Share your story with anybody who's willing to hear it. Put it on social media. Go live. What I realized is you matter. Like, I mean, you matter, I matter, but the person's matters, and their story matters. Like, there's tons of empowerment people out there. There's tons of people who talk about personal transformation. But what I realized is that my story is unique, and it's going to hit people who need to hear it. So to the other part I want to say to your question is those are some of the tactical things that you can do. But if you're young and you're thinking like, hey, I want to do this, or maybe just young and where you are in the process, not necessarily in age, but your story matters. There's somebody out there that you're going to be able to help stand up. And again, you just need to start sharing your story, because what I learned, it's like the Nike saying, just do it. You can't be the thing that you want to be without doing it, without being it. So you just got to do it, and it's scary, but it's going to work out.
The people always ask me, go, well, what kind of guest do you have on the podcast? I go, someone that owns a business and is willing to be honest and be truthful, right? Because everyone, like you said, everyone has some sort of story. If you're willing to be honest and you have someone that's willing to listen, and over time, you're going to have people that want to listen. Again, if you're open with your story and honest with your story. So I totally agree with you. Thank you, Becca, so much for being on the podcast. Everyone listening, please subscribe, please share. It doesn't matter if it's today. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you listen to Becca's story, she even talked about when she first started basically her business, right? There was hurdles throughout the way. It took time for her to understand herself, fully understand herself, before she could actually give back to others in the way she wanted to give. So just because maybe it's not working today doesn't mean it won't work tomorrow. Thank you guys again for listening. Please subscribe, please share, and go in the show notes. Bye, everyone.